after the chanting of that song, how many Afrikaners were murdered because of the chanting of that song?
Well, of course, one can never say it was exactly because of that song, but one can also not say...
But that's the argument that has been put forward.
There were three murders.
That is the argument. And then you go
Yes.
on to say that the song actually says that the meaning of the judgment means that it's okay to say that you will kill somebody. But that's not what the court had said.
It doesn't matter what kind of argument you give. People are chanting, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. They're making sounds, mimicking gunshots when they do so, and they are provocative in doing so. If the courts are not going to protect us, if the president is not going to say anything, then we'll have to protect ourselves.
Why do you think that the court is wrong to say that this is about a political system and not necessarily about calling on people to be killed?
Doesn't matter what the intentions of the song is. It infringes on the dignity of a people, and it frightens young people, it frightens children. This court has now shown disrespect for the dignity of Afrikaners and farmers, and we won't take that lying down. For us to take this to international courts and to the UN, we will not accept in the country of our birth that somebody can chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and then insulting us by saying...
Guys, I really can't believe that South Africa seems to be slowly going this route that everyone actually feared. So Kali Kriel, being the really stubborn South African he is, has decided that he won't take the Constitutional Court's ruling on the kill the Boer chant lightly, lying down. That's his words. He actually argues that probably Afrikaners, or maybe, I don't know if this might even include all white people in South Africa, might now have to wake up and protect themselves. This was kind of the rhetoric that actually used to be built then. I think when you even watch the movies like Hotel Rwanda, the Rwandan issue, and many other movies that speak to these kinds of clash between people groups, these are the kinds of rhetoric that go before, and I really don't think this is what South Africa needs at the moment. So this interview with Aldrin of Newsroom, for me also, I was really shocked. You know, the whole thing with the constitutional courts and all that, I'm struggling to really understand that judgment anyway, as an outsider. But like I usually say, I would never be able to understand the pain of those who actually went through the system of apartheid, and, you know, the pain that those who were probably descendants of apartheid proponents have actually gone through in a democratic South Africa. All sides feel some kind of pain, and that's why South Africa is in such a state of trauma. And in this interview with Kali Kriel, between Kali Kriel and Aldrin here in this newsroom, there are many things that, I think probably for an outsider listening, would sound really shocking. But at the same time, the fact that South Africa was able to take Israel to the International Court of Justice, I'm suspecting that Afriforum might now take the South African court system, the justice system, to the International Court of Justice, or like Kali says, the United Nations, on charges of abuses against human rights. And I think that wouldn't be a good marketing for South Africa in terms of investment and the future it wants to build for all South Africa. Let's quickly listen to this interview, and I really encourage you to watch till the end, because at the end, Kali makes some really, really disturbing statements. Not disturbing in terms of disturbing to, you know, Afrikaners or all that, but disturbing to the future of South Africa, arguing that, you know, probably Afrikaners might need to wake up and protect themselves. Let's quickly listen to them, and I'll be back for my final thoughts.
We've seen some bit of reaction to the Constitutional Court decision not to even entertain the appeal. And part of what you had said is the radicalization of the courts. Why do you make that argument?
Good morning to you, Aldrin. Well, we make that argument because we are seeing a growing number of judges that are ideologically driven. And that, of course, has huge implications, because with the political transition in 1994, the indication was given that the Constitution and the Constitutional Court would give protection to human rights, and those human rights would also, of course, then include the human rights of Afrikaners. With a shocking judgment like this seems no longer the case. You can sing or chant that somebody should be killed, and it's fine. And if I can give you a specific example of a judge, Judge Raylene Keatley, she's in the appeal court.
Sorry, Judge who?
Raylene Keatley.
Raylene?
Raylene, that's correct.
Yes.
She was, before our court case regarding this matter, a few years before that, she openly stated that negative attitudes towards Afriforum, insults towards Afriforum, which shows a clear bias. We then said, and that was also now part of our case to the Constitutional Court, if you're going to have a judge that is clearly has an ideological bias towards you, she should not be on the bench. And the judges of the appeal court said, no, it's fine. She can be there. The Constitutional Court disregarded this. And in that case, I think we have serious problems or trouble because I think the glue in this country was people thinking that the Constitutional Court and the Constitution gives us protection. And it seems it's no longer so. But we won't take this lying down. The fact is we have self-respect. I have 4 children. And it doesn't matter who argues what with what is the meaning of it. If my children hear somebody sings, kill the Boer, which means they should be killed, it is an infringement of their dignity. It reduces them to second-class citizens in the country of their birth. So we will fight this. We have a 2-pronged approach. And making us worse is that you have somebody in the presidency that refuses to condemn these chants, the president himself. And then you have a minister in that presidency that blatantly lies, that seems to have no integrity, by saying Afriforum said things in a meeting that is not so.
Okay. Let's just quickly pause there. We'll come back to what Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, had said. So you've made a number of allegations, including with regards to Justice Keatley. This matter was dealt with in the Supreme Court of Appeal after you had asked for her recusal, and it was dismissed. You did try once again, as we note, with the application to the Constitutional Court to have this matter revisited. You have failed on that part. And then you go on to say that the song actually says that the meaning of the judgment means that it's okay to say that you will kill somebody. But that's not what the court had said. The Supreme Court of Appeal had said that the chanting of the song is in relation to a political system, not individuals, and the killing of individuals.
You know, that's the problem. That kind of argument has total disrespect for the dignity of Afrikaners and the dignity of farmers. Because it doesn't matter what kind of argument you give. People are chanting, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. They're making sounds, mimicking gunshots when they do so, and they are provocative in doing so. So if the courts think that is fine, then I have a serious problem with the courts. Then we have to say, okay, we now need alternative solutions. If the courts are not going to protect us, if the president is not going to say anything, then we'll have to protect ourselves within the framework of the law. We will strengthen our 177 neighborhood watches and farm watches, because if people are saying we should be killed, we need to be able to defend
But we just said, Kali, that the court is not saying that individuals should be killed, but what the court has found and accepted on behalf of the argument that was made by Julius Malema, including the experts that was before the Supreme Court of Appeal, was that this is a political song and it speaks to a political system, which the court is also linked to, for instance, some of the priorities that the EFF has set out for itself, including economic transformation as well as land restitution.
Well,
let me ask the question this way. Let me ask the question this way, Kali. Why do you think that the court is wrong to say that this is about a political system and not necessarily about calling on people to be killed?
Because there's another very important factor that the court totally ignored, and now the Constitutional Court even refused to hear that argument. The fact is, doesn't matter what the intentions of the song is. It infringes on the dignity of a people, and it frightens young people, it frightens children. And what the court has now said, it doesn't matter if children hear that they could be killed because they understand it, they don't understand it correctly. This court has now shown disrespect for the dignity of Afrikaners and farmers, and we won't take that lying down. Apart from protecting ourselves locally, we will take this internationally. Already last night, I instructed our legal team to make sure what the options are for us to take this to international courts and to the UN. We will not accept in the country of our birth that somebody can chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and then insulting us by saying we must now accept that they have some kind of figurative meaning.
So you want to take
it? Not figuratively. Our dignity is not disrespected figuratively. It's literally.
So you're going to take it to the. So you're going to take it to the United Nations, one of the platforms, or one of the places that you think that this matter can be dealt with. Is this the very same United Nations that has declared apartheid a crime against humanity, which Afriforum denies to date?
No, we never denied that they said that. The question was...
No, you are denying that apartheid is a crime against humanity.
No, that was not the question. If you're asking me, is it a crime against humanity? It is. The Rome Statute of 2000 declared it a human rights abuse. The question in that specific debate was looking back into the past, into 1950. The judge even found that interview, I was not given a chance to state my point. That judge also found that I in no way tried to protect discriminatory action. But it is the same United Nations. And if the United Nations took a stance against the infringement of the dignity of people in the past through discriminatory racial laws, we expect of that same United Nations to now take a strong stance against the infringement of our dignity when people can say, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and we are just expected, and even worse, those are radical elements. What is worse is that there are many others in this country that says it's fine, which says, well, the dignity of Afrikaners are of lesser value because this song has some kind of historical significance. That is the shocking part of it. But fortunately, 80% on grassroots level, people want to work together. We were yesterday at the Borlongbusa with a project. So we are going ahead there, but we will not take it lying down.
Let's ask this question, Kali. When the EFF celebrated its 10th anniversary, you saw that stadium was packed to the brim. After the chanting of that song, how many Afrikaners were murdered because of the chanting of that song?
Well, of course, one can never say it was exactly because of that song, but one can also not say...
But that's the argument that has been put forward. That is the argument. But the court has said that there's no causal link.
But there does not have to be
the most recent. Let's speak about the most recent incident where, again, Julius Malema sang this song. How many Afrikaners were murdered because of the singing of that song?
Well, there's on average one a week. I did not follow that. But for the same argument, you cannot say there wasn't any. But this is not our point. The law says you don't have to show that there's a direct link. And that is why these courts are biased. What you have to show is that it is hurtful. And
yes, but that's what the court is saying, that just because it's hurtful, no, the court didn't say that. The court said just because it's hurtful, and it made reference to the Kwelani case as well, just because it's hurtful doesn't necessarily mean it's hateful.
No, it is hateful, but of course, the fact is the court makes a mistake if it says you have to show there's a link. That is not what the law says, but you have a biased judiciary that looked at this case. They are hell-bent on fighting the battles of the past, not protecting the dignity of Afrikaners.
Okay.
And they will now try and find all these arguments.
So does this then...
Yes.
Does this then mean that Afriforum will no longer take that Expropriation Act to the courts because these courts are biased?
Well, I did not say all courts are biased, but it now becomes a lottery. Which judge are you going to get? What is the judge's view in terms of their own ideology? Because we've now seen that they are not hesitant to use their ideology when they make a statement or make a judgment. So that is why this is a serious problem. If we don't have the protection of the courts and the Constitution, well, then we're on our own and we'll have to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I don't want this video to be too long, guys, but if I really try to really think through all that's really going on in South Africa, in the words of Neo de Beer in my last interview, he had a strong message for the government, for South Africa and for South Africans, and it was stop now. That all the gains of social cohesion and unity that has actually been gained in the last 30 years seems to be destroyed in just this 1 year, 2025. And that's a strong message because, you know, I've spoken to South African Indians, coloreds, whites, blacks, and all I see is a beautiful nation, a beautiful people, and people who really want to eat. At the end of the day, the whole argument about this whole thing with land expropriation, land reservation is people who really just want to eat. Okay? Now, I'll be dropping another video where the EFF and Willie Ocamp of the DA really clashed on TV. And the EFF representative was arguing that the best way to find unity and social cohesion, which the DA wants, is by them owners of land in South Africa. She argued, I think, 79%. If I remember, I hope I get that statistics right. So according to the EFF's statistics, the EFF argues that 79% of land in South Africa is still being owned by whites. All right. So this is, let me try to get that argument. So I'm really careful not to make a mistake. Yes. So I'll be playing that video soon anyway. But she says that 79% of South African land is still in white hands. So according to the EFF, the way to find unity and social cohesion in South Africa is to share the land, because she argues, especially this EFF rep, that blacks are really pushed in squatter camps and not squatter camps, but, you know, really these poor locations, and they do not have land or access to land. And this whole thing with land actually seems to be the bedrock of all the conflagrations South Africa is facing at the moment. And for me, I really don't know how that sort of problem will be solved. It's a really complex one. But at the end of the day, I think, like Kwame Nkrumah used to say, he said, seek ye first the political kingdom and everything will be added to you. And when he realized that the political kingdom wasn't enough, he started to push the mantra saying that, you know, that's Africa and Ghana will not be free unless it first of all attains economic freedom. And so this is where I think the whole debate lies. I really don't know how the inequality will be bridged in South Africa. The blacks really want this land, the whole thing with the land. And I don't know if the words of Gaten Mackenzie, who argues that we can expropriate land, but we have to expropriate with compensation, because he argues that the land that was actually attained by probably those who are claimed to have gotten it in the first place, they've added value over these years. And so to sell off the land or to share the land now with all the value and years of work that have been put into that land would be unfair. So you see how complex this is really now. So it's not just all about giving the land to probably the disenfranchised, but it's also giving the land to the disenfranchised in such a way that compensates for the blood and sweat that has been put by the person who got this land supposedly. You know, at first, actually, the EFF, they argued that this land was stolen. So in other words, the argument now is, how does the owner of what has been claimed to be stolen land give that land in a fair way that compensates for the blood and sweat they have put into that stolen land to develop that land and to contribute to the feeding or probably the welfare of the other person without hurting the person who is actually claimed to be the owner of stolen land. So this is the complexity of the argument, and how that will be solved, bro, I don't know. But Thabo Mbeki had some really interesting ideas in the last video I made, and probably I'll be pasting that video again, where he says that the land doesn't really belong to these people called our people, who in South Africa is not our people, all right? And so that's the complexity of the thing. So according to Thabo Mbeki, he then argued that, one smart way would be to say that, land belongs to all those who probably work it, something like that. So depending on your contribution to the development of the value of the land, then probably that land belongs to all in South Africa who work the land. The EFF and the proponents of the EFF and the MK would say that this land was stolen initially and it should be given to the rightful owners before we come to say that land must be owned by those who work it. So they want to balance, first of all, the economics before the kind of like the normative, or probably the normative order, according to Thabo Mbeki. And this is a complex problem, that at the end of the day, if what's going on right now devolves into what might be, in the language of Africa and the likes of the civil war we saw in Rwanda, in Biafra, in Mogadishu, if South Africa decides to go that route, we would definitely be seeing not just a civil war, but a racial war on the continent, which South Africa is not really ready or prepared for at the moment. And one of the things that surprises me is that this whole case isn't yet at the African Union. I think this whole problem should now be taking center stage at the African Union, at the level of the African Union, because right now, what is being discussed at the African Union is the war in South Sudan, in Sudan generally anyway, the war in Congo with the M23 rebels. Now I think it's said that Rwanda and Eritrea might have a clash soon. There are also these struggles, yes, in the Amazonia, in Cameroon. Then the Sahel guys are actually fighting the terrorists. But where South Africa is actually going now with this whole thing, we killed the BOER, with Donald Trump's aggression against South Africa and the ANC, I think this case now has to slowly start getting to the African Union, because it's becoming a problematic case. And I think this is where our voices should be directed to. We have to start taking this case up the political chain in Africa, probably the likes of the African Union, and hopefully get a kind of like a fair hearing of justice. Because taking this out to international waters, the United Nations, the International Court of Justice and all that, will be creating more complexities that I don't think even the majority black South Africans might be ready for. Or probably they might be ready, but it would come with a lot of pain, hunger. Bro, I really don't know if our black people are really ready for this. But anyway, this me just ranting lightly. The more I study South Africa, the more I'm trying to really understand. It's complex, guys. It's complex. But what do you guys think about this interview here with Kali Krell and Adrian from Newsroom? Share your thoughts in the comments.